Yeah, I'm Jackson. I have zero experience with carpentry.
I studied at a school for historic preservation in Boston and learned about how things were built, 250 years ago.
There's a long way to go. I'm nowhere near the top. Not that I thought I was, but there's so much more to do out there.
Welcome back to the Passion for Craft podcast, where we are trying to change craft in America one house at a time. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Doing great.
Yeah? You got your coffee there?
Got my Passion for Craft coffee.
Early morning?
Yes.
With that coffee, he's ready for another 10,000 hours.
That's right. Oh,
Nice.
Good segue.
Nice. What do you mean by that?
I mean, the general belief is that to be an expert in your field, you need somewhere around 10,000 hours to get there.
Malcolm Gladwell. Yeah, he wrote about it. Okay, there's been other studies. Basically, the studies have shown that mastery occurs after someone has spent 10,000 hours doing something.
Okay.
And they tested ballerinas, musicians, surgeons, all these different things. Craftsmen. I don't think they looked at builders. And so when I first heard that statistic, I was always like, okay, so 40 hours a week, 2,000 hours a year, 5 years, 10,000 hours.
Basically 5 years to become a master at something.
Well,
if you're doing it 40 hours a week.
if you're doing it 40 hours a week for 5 full years, you become a master.
Okay.
Now, the problem is in our field is that you rarely spend your time doing the same thing over and over again. Like my deal is that, and you would have bristled at this if someone said it early in my career, but I think you're a knucklehead in this business until you've been 10 to 15 years doing it. And so
How many years have you done?
12.
so I
Just
mean,
out of the range.
right? I mean, you feel like you're just coming into your own right now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And so here's the other thing is if you had kept doing what you were doing for 30 years, let's say, I don't think you would have progressed as a craftsman, right? It would have gotten into a rut. It would have gotten into,
Oh, I already hit that wall. Yeah. 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 No,
Wait,
it's for
speak
real.
to that. Wait,
So I have, according to Brent's math, I'm a double master
Nice.
in basic carpentry.
Trim
No, I don't know,
carpentry?
but
Well
I've done. Yeah, so I hit a wall where I was just like, I'm doing the same thing over and over, and that is how you become a master. But it's not all how you become a master, because if you're doing one task, like assembly line type task, you're not really a master. Like assembly line, automobile, Henry Ford, if you're just the guy who puts on the lug nuts, you don't know how that whole car operates. You know, the true master is very experienced in all aspects. For you to say, I'm a master of this car, that means you know all systems. You know the fuel system, the air intake, the exhaust,
gear ratios.
Yeah. Same thing in carpentry. Brent's alluded to this before. Good carpenter is not just a trim guy. It's a stair. You can do trim, you can do stairs, you can build cabinetry if needed.
Yeah.
You know how to take measurements and put things together. And then to me, you're a master at that point. So from what he's saying, I haven't really explored all those areas.
Yeah.
I've explored quite a few of them, but I'm not a master. I'll tell you that right now. I'm a journeyman.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm going to print this.
I think that a lot of guys hit a wall, right? Because they're working for the same builder or they're doing the same thing over and over, and they're not progressing. And so I told the story, the builder who calls me, and his carpenter had installed these pair of doors like this, and so they were askewed, right?
Misaligned,
One was kicked out, one was kicked in, and when the doors came together in the middle, they didn't line up. They were like this.
Yeah.
And so he calls me and says, your doors are warped. And we're like, no, that's not right. And so we go over there, and sure enough, we kick the jambs in and straighten the door out, and we send him a bill. And so for $500 for a trip and to repair this stuff, he goes, what are you sending me this bill for? I go, well, your guy installed it wrong. He goes, what are you talking about? That guy's been doing trim work for 30 years. He's a master. And I was like, nope, he's not. And so, because why? Because he's been doing the same thing over and over and over again, and he really hasn't mastered carpentry. Okay, he's mastered installation.
Well, it sounds like he did.
Kind of, right? He has done the same thing to a point of proficiency, but he hasn't mastered. Maybe we'd dive into that. What is, most guys I think are proficient. Very few are masters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm at a crossroads right there. I'm very proficient at basic installs and stuff like that. But as far as mastery and design and vision, like being a visionary and looking at something, that's kind of where I'm at. Like I'm kind of like looking in that direction of like, I want to achieve that, So
if 10,000 hours is a mastery thing, do you feel like you're halfway? Do you feel like you're 3/4? Do you feel like
that's a good question?
And so if we look at it too, not only just overall, but as a trim carpenter. See, as a trim carpenter, you need more experience doing some of the stuff that we're doing, but you're a master craftsman in the sense of your skill level, the way you think about the job, the way he approaches and prepares, his speed.
To
right?
your point, you've gone and you've seen the installs, the day in, the day out, the job itself for 2 times over master, right? So you've done over 20,000 hours to 10 years plus. 12 years, right?
Yeah, 12 years.
So, 10 years plus of hours on a job, installing, doing that, you've hit your mastery there. But then you're saying that there's this other pool of things that you haven't quite mastered yet. But,
for sure.
And
Yeah.
that comes in.
But what I'm saying though is that the trim carpentry he's been doing hasn't been of the level that where you lay out a room like this and you're doing hunting miters and you're doing other things like that, and you're even building those things by hand. And so, and I haven't either, right? I'm supposed to be the master on this thing. There's so many things I haven't done. And so the big picture is if we look at craft in America, there's a builder in town who says, I'm a master craftsman and a master builder. It just makes my skin crawl because he's an idiot, right? And what he cares about is marketing.
You want to tell us his name?
It's a marketing ploy, right? That he tells his potential customers, I'm a master builder. I really care about the art of building, right? It's just the big picture is that, how many master builders are there really in America? 20, right? Of guys. And look, what's your bar? How do you measure it? I look at guys from the past, Asher Benjamin, William Buckland, Samuel McIntyre. These are guys that practiced the craft of building 200 years ago.
So you're saying 20 in America?
20 in America.
Wow.
Of that skill level.
Because
who can design a house, who can craft and do it with their hands.
Because they know the house inside and out. Because when we're looking at this 10,000 hour metric, and this is the point I was making about Richard, is the 10,000 hour metric was used on ballerinas who are working on their twirl for 10,000 hours. So we're talking, and I'm sorry if I'm oversimplifying ballet or whatever else I'm using to compare here, but they're working on a very specific thing. Tennis, you're working on a serve, you're working on a stroke, you have a very finite number of things. Whereas when it comes to home building, and there is so many things that you could be a technical master of, for you to be a master of building, it would take the knowledge of trim carpentry, the knowledge of door making, the knowledge of window making, the knowledge plumbing, electric
work,
like
you
would
got
take
it, yeah.
all of those things.
Yeah, so exactly. You may be an expert window maker, but you don't know how to make doors. That doesn't really make sense. If you can make doors, you can make windows. But yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like there's different aspects within craft.
Yeah.
And to be a master, like you brought up those guys from the past, they probably had, I don't know how many tens of thousands of hours just studying the language of architecture and how that communicates, to a house, to a building. And that's why those things are still admired today.
Yeah.
It's because they were built by masters.
Yes.
Do you ever want to be a builder, or do you like? I mean, as you aspire to our craft and our trade, are you, do you say, well, one day I'd like to be a builder? Or I've never heard you say that.
I haven't said that. I don't really see myself there. That's not to say that I'm against it, but my whole thing has been I want to take this carpentry thing to like extreme level that it can go to, and share that with the world.
I love that. That's exciting to me because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like too many people want to be the builder because they think that's the top of the totem pole.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't look at it that way at all. I think most builders are knuckleheads. Okay. And so they know how to move paper around. They know how to talk to the customer.
Yeah.
There's a builder in town who is a top builder, and he has been building for 8 years, 10 years. I always sit there and go, why is he considered, like why has he built this reputation? And it's really because he is organized, very proficient as far as, that organization, making the customer experience very, easy to transition. He builds a pretty house, but I've been through his houses and they are stale. Okay. He knows how to lay bricks up. He doesn't know how to create bonds with bricks. He knows how to do a paneled room, but they make no sense. He knows how to, get his subs to do different things, but he's not a master. And so that's a real nuanced thing, but there's a lot of people who want to be him. And I just yeah, but you're bypassing the art of building, right? You're not.
You're an expert coordinator, but you're not a master builder.
I think
You need to be proficient in more than one thing, proficient. And I think as a builder, you need one of those things needs to be how things look, like the language of architecture, which I didn't even know existed. Like this thing behind me right here is a whole language. If you don't speak this language, it's like me going to a foreign country and just like babbling my way around. It's
Right.
like, what's this guy talking about? And a lot of houses and read that way. Like you say, you go into a room and it doesn't make sense. Like the paneling layout is not there. Why? Because they don't speak this language. So are you really a master builder when you don't even speak the master builder language?
Right.
Which is,
well, and I think in my career as a builder, I was trained in preservation, which was a huge leap forward because I learned how things were built 200 years ago. Then I learned about millwork because we had the mill shop and everything. Then I learned about classical architecture. So 20 years into my, career, that's when I kind of learned about the language of architecture and all that stuff. And now in the last, 4 years, I'm learning a ton about build science, right? And so
What is build science as a part? Like, how does that differ from the language of building? Is that like structural integrity and stuff like
so
that?
it's I think a lot of people would consider build science to be the
Science of building. Sorry.
you had to do it.
Yeah.
Like the efficiency of a house.
But people use it as a metric to determine how good their houses are, and so they'll say, my blower door test was a 0.6. I'm this quality of builder because of that, and I'm just like, it is one metric, right? That is valuable, is important. You are building very conscientiously about and thinking conscientiously about how a house should perform, but it's just one metric.
Yeah.
And I feel like that one thing that I've been lucky and blessed by is to have exposure to these different things so that my world's expanded. I now look at classical architecture as a whole subset of understanding about my past tradition of building that I never knew about. And so I think a builder should know how to build. And a lot of builders never swung a hammer. I think that's a problem too.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, you got to at least throw the tool bags on a couple times, to get the experience, because you're not going to know what, if your guy's run into an issue, you're not going to know what's going on.
Well, and then the master builder, the architect means master builder. Okay. The word architect. And
Really?
if you think about,
I didn't know that either. That's cool.
Yeah, ARCA is chief, and then design, so chief designer. Historically, the reason Asher Benjamin, Samuel McIntyre, those guys were architects in America is because they were the master builder, right? They were they understood design as well.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, the building industry has been segmented so that the architect and designer are over here and the craftsman and builder over here. And used to be the same person.
It's no longer one brain that's coming up with all of it. It's now 3 different guys
Yeah,
sometimes.
and then the designer would come in and say, well, I like the chair rail at 36. And you're like, no, you're not supposed to be at 36. So
right.
anyway.
And
Wait,
you're
I thought you
basing
said
that
it's
based
always
off
at
of-
36. No, I'm just kidding.
You're
Oh,
basing that on
man.
classical.
Going to come across this table.
You're basing that on classical numbers,
Correct,
right?
yeah.
So I mean, this may be I don't know. You may not know this, but you're saying that there are like build tests that have like standards that give you percentages and
Correct.
like a baseball player would have certain
Yeah,
percentages.
I mean, the build science basically is that a house should be comfortable and efficient, and they are able to measure that efficiency now. And so they do it by a blower door test. They actually put a big fan on your door and they suck air out, and the resistance is measured. And so, if a blower door test on a house like ours built in 62 with very little insulation might blow a blower door test of 8, whereas a very efficient house will blow one under 1, and code is like 3 or 5 depending on what zone you're in. So there is a metric that some builders are chasing after, saying I want this, and so it has its own set of problems.
I do have I mean, this may not be a thing, but have you ever looked at like a truly historical door? How does it hold up to the build sciences tests of today? I mean, maybe I'm just thinking in terms of what could be a cool YouTube video, but I mean, it would be interesting to see, does a historic door hold up to the build science tests of today? Does a historic I'm assuming there's window tests and other stuff that too. But
a couple of things. One, because it's wood, it's thermally a very efficient product.
Yeah.
And so then you're getting into problems of seals, like how it's weather stripped and stuff like that. So you're not really testing a
historic, it's
door.
modern stuff. Mainly.
Yeah.
Okay.
This whole 10,000 hours thing, I didn't want to spend time on build science. I'm trying to get to the guy out there who's a trim carpenter. How long does it take to become a master trim carpenter? That's my question.
It matters the jobs that you're doing. If I would continue on the road that I was on, which is fine. I mean, it's carpentry, it's installing, whatever. It's a craft. It definitely is. But like now working with the stuff with you guys, now I'm being challenged in a whole bunch of new ways. And a lot of times, John, the guy who works with me, my brother-in-law, we're just there like, this is crazy. Like, how are we going to do this? But we do it. We figure it out. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Because he's like, what did you get us into now? I'm like, we have to figure this out.
Those scary moments are scary, but they're also, when you get through them, you feel like mountaintops experiences.
Because you could have 10,000 hours just bolting those lug nuts on, or you could spend those 10,000 hours in every aspect of the thing. And I think the key to becoming a master carpenter is pushing yourself. I mean, this could go for any trade or any sports or whatever. Pushing yourself beyond comfort. When you're comfortable, you're not really, you may be doing hours, but they may not be contributing to those 10,000 hours.
Right.
Because you've already mastered that, how to swing a hammer. Well, you've had that for 10 years.
Right.
You're not, how much more hours do you think that's going to help?
Yes.
Right.
So you need to go out of your comfort zone, take on some stuff, take on different jobs and become a well-rounded person. So when someone asks you, hey, how's this going to go? You can kind of answer it. And that's why I recently started studying the classical architectural language, because it's everything to do with moldings. It's all based off moldings. And
those are the letters, right? They're the what you read, right?
Yeah.
If it's a language, right? They're what communicate.
Yeah, I'm in this field of moldings, and I don't even speak the language. Like if I really in 15 years or 10 years, whatever, if I really want to be an expert in my field, this has got to be like second nature to me. So I need to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
So
and all of this, the language essentially of moldings comes down to what it looks like to have like you're saying order, like a classical order, like Ionic, Doric, Corinthian, like that kind of order. Is that what we're talking
exactly.
about? Okay.
Yeah, I mean it would communicate. So if this was a there's nothing on these walls. There's a white wall. Okay. You might come in here and the ceiling was white. You couldn't see the beams. There's nothing in this room that will help you establish a sense of scale.
Yeah.
Like how, where, what am I supposed to, how big is this room really? So when you put moldings and bases and crowns and you define, punctuate openings and do things, you are putting little elements of scale in there that allow you to relate to that space.
Yeah.
So you go, okay, now if we had a little 1 inch little molding at the top and
a room of this size.
Yeah, of a room of this size, you'd be like, what? And so it would throw you off. But when you walk in and it's laid out and it's very carefully, you end up walking into those spaces going, I don't know why I like this, but I really like this space because you relate and harmonize with that space, and moldings are what help you do that. So to his point, I've been sitting here practicing putting moldings in room without really understanding how they communicate.
Well, and basically when it comes to the ordering of the room, does a lot of that stuff still come down to like the golden ratio and all that, or?
The Greeks and the Romans, when they originally put together their whole classical system we use today, was based on the human body. So your hand is basically this collection of golden ratios. Your index, your bottom of your finger to your finger is a whole. This 3 to 5 relationship, hand to your arm.
Yeah, forearms the size of your foot.
Yeah, and so it's just, Da Vinci, when he figured this out, just freaked out.
Yeah.
And so there is a golden ratio, but I'd rather call it a human scale. The golden ratio in my mind is God's fingerprints. Okay, in my mind, they're
absolutely
they're His design, and it's perfect. It's this beautiful, perfection that expresses who He is as a designer. And so we end up using those things, but I'd probably caution against someone pulling out a golden ratio ruler and trying to do things, although I know really good architects who do that. So yes, there is that there, but I don't think there's a trim hack that shows people how to do that.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't thinking, all right, how can I shortcut the system here? I was really just wondering, like, is that decided based on this number that we see all across nature, all across all these places, that just makes sense, that's what we're resonating with, where we see something like that and we're like, yeah, that matches, or that's right for whatever reason I can't explain, but whenever I see it, I just resonate with it. You know what I mean? So I didn't know if that existed or not. But
it definitely does. Yeah. The human scale and proportion, that stuff, everything he just said. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at in learning about this stuff. Yeah. And it's really interesting.
That's the language you're learning.
Yeah.
It's a fun journey. So my question to you, okay, since you're the journeyman of the team, what do you say to the trim carpenter out there who is either behind you or equal with you or in front of you as far as how many hours he's put in? How does that person become a master? Because as we've discussed, it's not just hours, because you can put hours into the wrong thing.
It would have to be the same thing as pushing yourself into those other worlds, those other realms of carpentry.
The one realm that you've talked about is the speaking the language, learning the language of trim and all that. What are the other realms that you need to explore? Yeah.
So I would say I've mastered basic trim installation.
Yeah.
So that would be base, crown, casings, all that. What I haven't mastered is stair building, and that's kind of the big thing that is like the pinnacle, like you were saying. Like that's the big thing that takes a lot of execution, very little room for error without wasting thousands of dollars in material. So yeah, branching off into other areas. And what's unique about my company, we used to paint everything we did.
Oh, wow.
So not only was I like a master at the kind of entry level trim stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I was a master at painting, but I was very good a craftsman at painting. I knew how to get things prepped. I knew how to prime, how to sand all the different grits, how to like everything, clean all the dust off, and then spray like finish coats on. So I feel like that having that painting experience has made me even a more confident carpenter.
For sure.
Because I know human nature kind of tells you like sometimes you can get lazy and just say, just get it done, whatever.
Yeah.
But I know like if I don't get this joint right, I'm the one that's coming back to caulk it and fill it and sand it, and I've got to make it look pretty at paint. So I always knew like this is my problem still.
Right.
Like there's no passing the buck because I'm painting this stuff.
Yeah.
Not that I would want to do that anyways, but I'm just saying like it all falls back on me. There's no like, oh, your painter screwed that up. Sorry,
Because you were their painter.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that. It just wouldn't be very effective.
Yeah. I could just put on a different hat.
Yeah.
I'm the painter.
How's it going?
No, it was the carpenter. No.
All right, take your hat off.
So yeah, just to answer your question, it's got to be exploring different roads in that same city that you're in. Like you're going down you're in Carpentry Town.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to go down Stair Avenue. Well, now it's time to take a right-hand turn onto building entablatures. Then a left-hand turn on coffered ceilings. That's a whole big thing. So that would be my answer to you. Just branching out in the same field.
I love it. Yeah, and I agree. I think of Gary Katz, who's a good friend, master trim carpenter. He started out trimming apartments, and it was production apartment trimming. I mean,
wow.
Probably the very low totem pole of just throw it together as fast as you can, and so but he didn't approach it slap happy like I'm just going to throw stuff in here as quick as I can,
get my job
done. He looked
at
it as a speed thing. I'm going to learn how to be efficient, and so he spent those years doing that. Now he can, build a federal mantle and do all the great things he can do. But he worked in a number of different lanes, I guess is my point, that he did work at that low level production thing, but he's also worked at the very high level too. So you've got to hit multiple lanes or you're going to get stuck.
Yeah. And I've watched a ton of his videos, and he's like a master door hanger. Like,
wow.
He's kind of mastered the carpentry side of it. He's a true master with probably 30,000. I don't know how many thousands of hours, but he's up there.
So if you guys are both well further along in the trip than I am to the road to mastery. So for guys starting out, what are some areas that you guys recommend to start pursuing in that road for mastery? Maybe to avoid some of the pitfalls that you guys didn't fall into, but maybe wasted hours on. And not to say that any time spent working and honing a craft is wasted hours, but to your point, you've had 10,000 hours twice over and you're like, well, I needed to focus on this area and push myself in this way. So what are some good starting out areas?
I have a good example of this, and it's just trying something different. I was so scared to work with these guys. Like I'm telling you, I was like, I can't do that. That's crazy. You walk in somewhere here and you're like, no way. Like this is very intimidating, So Bobby, Brent's operations manager, saw my videos and was like, hey, we're always looking for good carpenters. And I was like, oh, I don't know any good ones, but no, he called me and he's like, we're always looking for good carpenters. Would you want to work for us? And I told him straight up, I was like, I don't think I'm there yet. I'm seeing your guys' stuff. I was watching Brent's videos already, and I wasn't like gonna reach out. I'm like, but I think it's just you've gotta just take that step, and even if you fail, they're gonna tell you like, hey, dude, this needs to be corrected or whatever,
Right. And
I think you need to kind of know that about yourself. Like if you're just starting, maybe don't take on like a huge staircase, so maybe don't take it that far, but there's a huge staircase over there at that project, and I'm like, let's go. Like if they want to do it, like I'm up for the challenge. So but if you would have asked me this a year or two ago, I would have been like cowering in the corner, like so you got to get out of that
mindset.
You got to be like confident, and then I just didn't have the confidence. I was like, I'm kind of in this lane, I don't really think I can drive in that lane. So my advice to a new person would be, your level, what you're kind of capable of. Just push the boundaries of that level every chance you get within reason. That would be my answer.
That's great. What about you? Any advice?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. Expose yourself to as much as possible. For me, it was doing commercial and residential work. Like the commercial, I said that one of our favorite jobs or top jobs was redoing those Santa Fe depots and courthouses. The mill work we were seeing in those jobs were they were done 150 years ago, 130 years ago, and were awesome. I mean, the quantity of wood was overwhelming. Yeah. And so being exposed to that and then doing commercial and residential opened my world to kind of this thing. I understand what Richard's saying. I think it would be hard if you come from a production background to look at the things that are done and go there and go, I'm not used to that. Right. But I was lucky. That's where we started. That's where I started. And you kind of just figure it out, right? There's job when we did the Hill County Courthouse, had all the interior millwork. It was one of those things like, good news, good news, bad news, good news, I got it, bad news, I got it. Right. And so, now I got to figure out how to do it. And so, exposing yourself to as much as possible, I think it's easy to hit the 10,000 hour number saying I'm a trim carpenter, but it's hard to hit the 10,000 number doing a variety of different stuff.
And one thing that comes to mind is if you're looking at something, in your like the depot, you're seeing all this stuff or whatever job it is, somebody did that already. You have two hands, you can probably figure it out. Yeah. It's going to be stressful, and that's one thing. Like it's stressful to figure this stuff out. If you don't want stress, I mean, you'll probably avoid it and kind of stay in a comfort zone. Yeah. So you got to be willing to take on some stress and some wasted material, some losses, even maybe you might even lose money. I don't know. It's just taking a risk, being a risk taker.
Makes sense.
So this is a new thing I wanted to ask, is be just for Brent, a little section called craft or pass. So the first one I have for you, Brent.
And when I say craft or pass, is it a thumbs up, thumbs down?
Would you like to craft it, or would you pass on craft?
Or it may not even be something that you're going to craft or a person's going to craft, but just the idea of the thing. This always comes to my mind when I'm driving around and I see these on houses, but craft or pass solar panels.
We were just talking about build science too.
Would that increase your electricity score or eco score or something?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're there yet as far as the efficiency. I'd probably pass. I don't think, from my understanding, where the upside downside of the solar panels, especially depending whether you're paying for it and whether it's government subsidized and everything else, I don't think we're there yet. And so I suspect in 10 years we will be, where it'll make a lot of sense. I don't think it does now.
So in 10 years, if we're there, how do those look on houses?
I think they become smaller and more invisible.
Yeah, because they're hideous right now.
They're obtrusive.
They make me sick.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, I got to ask him about that, because I see these things and I'm like I prefer beauty over function. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is where I would try to balance out with the homeowners. Like if the homeowner's goal is to be net zero and be off the grid, you'd probably have to consider them.
True.
But you'd try to, put them in a back field, probably not mount them to the top of the house. And so you try to find that balance.
Or mount it on the back side of their A-frame roof rather than on the front side.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because, I actually have a crafter pass for both of you guys.
All right.
And the fact that you brought that up, this actually reminds me of something that I see a lot that I actually don't think is that bad, but I did hear Richard on a previous episode say, like those geometric wall design things. Yeah. So crafter pass, the geometric wall art
100% pass.
Okay.
Yeah, for me.
Okay.
Now, pass for me.
Really? Okay, so walk me through it. What I've seen, the accent wall, the classic COVID projects, the geometric accent wall is huge, whether it's painted on or whether they use a little bit of trim or wood or whatever. So so a lot of those geometric shapes.
Here's the deal.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to rant on this. Okay.
Great.
The problem is that no one knows how to make something beautiful. Okay. We live in houses with no trim on them. They are blank walls, and someone on Pinterest or creates this geometric design that adds interest. It's like painting one wall orange or something, where they do it in hotel rooms and things like that. They're looking for drama, but all it signals in my mind is that we've forgotten how to design, we've forgotten how to build, we don't know how to do it anymore. So a bright shiny object comes up, and we're like, oh, I could do that on my wall. This would be so exciting. And so we put those geometric shapes up there.
Okay.
They just signal ignorance,
Okay.
And a lot of them, I mean, geometric, I mean, I pass on them 100% for sure, even if they're laid out properly. But a lot of them are geometric.
Okay.
There's no golden ratio in there,
Okay.
Not that you need the golden ratio, but
if it was included, would you be more inclined?
I would only, there's no accent wall that I would like.
Okay.
I want to see the whole room unified.
Got it.
Amen.
I don't want to see.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I don't want to see just some one-off thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys very much. Do we have any closing thoughts on today?
Guys out there who want to be better, okay, and sit there and go, I've been doing this for 10 years, I've been doing this for 20 years, and either I'm bored or I hate what I do or whatever, that there is this opportunity within our trade to rise and thrive. And it requires, I think, getting out beyond your deal. The builders out there who are calling themselves masters who aren't, you're just leaving so much on the table of opportunity and beauty and everything else. And so
to better yourself and improve.
The whole point of this, the reason I wanted to talk about 10,000 hours is because I want it to be a point of encouragement that it's not a unscalable wall, but it does require working in a number of different fields. And it's what I aspire to do. I don't consider myself a master builder yet. I know a lot more than a lot of people, but when I compare myself to those guys in the past, I'm like, I got a long way to go, which is exciting, right? I don't consider that as a bad thing.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. If you reach the top of the mountain and what more is there to do? So you have to kind of always be looking for that next thing to do.
Yeah.
So 10,000 hours, I wouldn't worry too much about it if you're just starting out, because it sounds like Mount Everest.
Yeah.
But just slowly start moving up that slope, and eventually you'll hit a peak, and then you can just take it from there, and you'll learn stuff about yourself along the way.
Right.
I mean, 10,000 hours, what did you say? That's 5 years about?
Yeah.
I mean, think about how much you change in 5 years.
Yeah.
You may go, what if I started in carpentry and was like, man, this painting stuff I like this, I like spraying finish on a wall or whatever. You may change your whole craft, but everything builds on top of each other. And everything I learned about painting, like I said, has helped me become a better carpenter.
Yeah.
Everything I'm learning about this language of building is helping me become a better carpenter.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
And don't strive. I like what you said too. If you're a tile guy, if you're a carpenter, if you're a mason, a painter, those are all things that we need,
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So it's not like if you're not the builder, you're not it. It's
Yeah.
like, no, you can know more than the builder,
And most of the time you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're specialized in your craft. And it makes sense. I mean, that's my closing thought as an encouragement for me. 5 years is it's definitely a time chunk, but not a ton of time.
It's really not.
And if you're truly passionate about a craft, you definitely do it on the side as well. And man, that 5 years really shrinks down if it's something that you're pursuing, which is awesome. That's a really cool thing. But I think it also is a reminder that, I think, to my mind, the instant generation, I want to be it now. I want to be there now. Well, yeah, good things come to the slow and the process and the waiting.
Well, yeah, you think about like a degree, like a master's degree. That's even what they call it, right? What is that? 8 years?
It is, yeah.
Well, there you go. If you want to do that in the trades, I mean, just give it a solid 5 and see where you're at.
Right. Which is awesome. It's really encouraging.
Good stuff.
Well, thanks for watching. Join our Patreon, get access to the Discord, some bonus episodes, bonus content, and potentially talking to these guys and asking them your hard-hitting questions. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.